Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Lori. Today I wanted to do a video on the current energies. Today is April 20th? Yeah, April 20th. We just had the full moon last night or yesterday. And I have so many videos I want to do. And so I'm going to start with this one, current energies right now. So as I was sitting here downloading the information, this information came from the Galactic Federation of Light. And what they wanted to share with myself and with all of us is that what's happening right now is that we're becoming more conscious. We're waking up and we're looking, we're seeing, we are remembering. And it's becoming much more intense. Meaning the more awake we become, the more conscious we become of our experiences, our emotions, our thoughts, our beliefs, the more intense and sort of out of control we may feel. There's this feeling of there's nowhere to hide, there's nowhere to go anymore, there's no place to kind of numb out. It's almost like you're standing naked and just kind of like, oh my God, please God, just make sure I get through this. This is so intense. This is so challenging. This is so difficult. And bravo, because what that means is that you are shifting and you're doing it consciously. So the more conscious we become, in the beginning, the more difficult it may seem to be. Almost as if you're going backwards. Like if somebody had told me that waking up and beginning to consciously participate in the ascension process would mean that I would have to feel everything, look at everything, separate from people, separate from my job, hold firmer boundaries in terms of what feels good to me. We may not have said, yes, I'll do this, I'll wake up, right? But we know that we don't really have a choice. It's almost like your energetic body inside of you is speeding up, i.e., increasing its frequency. And as it increases its frequency, you start remembering and feeling more. Your energetic beingness begins to wake up and feel more. You can't go back to sleep. How many of us are like, oh my God, I can't even if I want to close my eyes and pretend this isn't happening. You don't have that choice anymore, right? It's that choice of no choice. That what you are experiencing, you have to look at, you have to feel, you have to see, you have to acknowledge, you have to move through for the first time for many of us in our entire lives. So there's very powerful traumatic traumas that are coming up, and this has been happening for quite some time. But what's happening right now is that many of us are starting to get very conscious of it. And we're starting to recognize what we're doing. We're starting, instead of it just kind of happening to us, now we're like, oh, this is what's going on. This is what's happening. This is what's processing through me. Oh my God, these thoughts are coming up again. You're starting to become the observer. And it can make you feel crazy. It can make you feel like you're kind of 3 steps back, right? However, you probably are also tapping into, at the same time, aspects of yourself or frequencies and dimensions, knowingnesses that you haven't tapped into before, felt before, or experienced before. There may be many of you that are able to hold knowingnesses more, meaning you're aware that we're in this matrix, you're aware that you're a light being in physical form, you're aware that you participated, right? But what you're able to do is hold that knowingness a little bit longer during your days, right? Some of you are just now recognizing it, just now tapping into these higher frequencies and saying, oh my God, holy cow. And then back down we go, right? Meaning back into this third dimensional density. The other thing that's happening is that we are, whether you are wanting to or not, we are being pushed down into where the physical body is. So right now, with all these other things that are happening, becoming more conscious, starting to recognize everything, feel everything more intensely, you're also being pummeled back into the density. That which we are trying to move out of, we are being pummeled back in. And what do I mean when I say pummeled back in? What I mean is that we are being forced into the physical form, because the physical form is the vessel. It's the vessel that's moving us. And for most of us, the physical vessel is still in this third dimensional grid and matrix, regardless of where your consciousness may expand out into. So the consciousness, or the light that you are, the energetic vibration of you, the aspect of us that is waking up, the aspect of us that is watching and being the observer, the aspect of us that remembers that we're a light being in physical form, the aspect of us that remembers that we volunteered to be here, that we created this Akashic record, that aspect of you is tapping into other dimensional fields, the fourth and the fifth, maybe the sixth, right? You're also tapping into higher vibrational energies like angels, star beings, ascended masters. You're starting to feel your gifts, or they're not even gifts, they're just your multidimensionality, meaning you can hear, feel, see other frequencies and energies, right? However, what you're noticing as well is that you are, unless you're trying to bypass it, which is only going to prolong what you're meant to be doing down here in the ascension. But for many of us, we are being forced back into this physical form where it feels very dense. So you're walking around in this dense cloud because the physical form is still very third dimensional. So regardless of where your kind of vibration is going and what you're able to tap into, you're still in this form. And so right now, currently with these energies, and whether you're watching this today, tomorrow, in 3 months, it's all perfect for you when you're listening to it. But what is happening is that you're expanding, remembering, awakening, becoming aware. It is intense, so you're feeling like you're naked, standing around saying, please God, let me get through this, because there's nowhere for you to go anymore, right? You can't hide, you can't numb out. There's nothing to do but to be in it. And as you're trying to sort of stay in these higher spaces or even tap into it and align with these higher aspects of you, you're being pushed into this physical vessel, whether you're aware of it or not, conscious of it or not. Many of us aren't even aware that this is happening. And when you're thrown into the body more and more, which means you're just aware that you're in a physical form, which means that you kind of are feeling dense, you're feeling heavy, you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling, and not just overwhelmed from the emotions and thoughts and beliefs that are coming up and the changes that you're making in your life, but overwhelmed just based on the density of this matrix we're in. The density of it. So even if you tap into the fourth dimensional frequency or the fifth dimensional frequency, regardless of how often you tap into it, regardless of how often you try to be in these higher states, I promise you, you're going to get pummeled back into this dense field because that's where your body's at still. Your body is still in that third dimension. Now, there are people that have, and I've said this in other videos, that have shifted their physical vibration, their physical form into that fourth dimensional field. They've anchored it down. And so they're not feeling as dense. They're just not in that density anymore. But for most of us, there's nothing wrong with being in this density, right? This is where our physical form is. We should be honoring it. And the more you can become aware of, wow, I'm feeling heavy. I'm feeling dense. I'm feeling uncomfortable. I'm feeling depression or sadness. So there's a combination of things, right? There is the feeling of density because you're awake, because you're waking up. Your energetic body, your energetic field is becoming more alert. It's awakening. It's being activated. Your light is turning on. Your light is activating. And when it activates, you feel more, you see more, you hear more, and it's an overload for a lot of us, right? So that's the first thing that's happening, because then you're coming into the body unconsciously or consciously, pummeled back into this third dimensional form, and you're feeling through this field, through the energetic field that's waking up, you're feeling the intense density. And you are also stepping out, kind of vibrating out into these other dimensional fields, the fourth dimensional matrix, the fifth dimensional matrix, which is just a grid or a field of consciousness that's existing in a higher frequency than where we are now. So it's almost like if you could see yourself, you would see that you're a multidimensional being. And as you awaken, as you literally open your eyes and start to see and remember, being a multi-dimensional being, which is what we are designed to be in the physical form, you're going to tap into different dimensions throughout your day, throughout your week, throughout your month. You're not going to be able to anchor into that fifth dimensional frequency. And when I say anchor, I mean your physical form holding that frequency. Now, your consciousness or energy inside the form, the light, the vibrational energy, is tapping into those fields, is holding those frequencies for a little bit, but it can't hold it for long because the physical form isn't able to hold that yet. The reason the physical form isn't able to hold that frequency yet is because there is still more density within the physical form as energy that is clearing out. And as soon as all of that is cleared out and there are no more third dimensional dense pockets of energy inside your form will then be able to vibrate at that fourth dimensional consciousness. But until all that third dimensional consciousness is cleared out, your form won't be able to anchor it in. It doesn't mean that the light of who you are, well, not the light of who you are, because the light of who you are is much higher dimensional space. The light of who you are, who knows where you came from? 12th dimension, 13th dimension, 18th dimension, right? So the light of who you are is a different dimension. But the light inside of you that's coming down from the sun, the activations, the light codes, all these things that are coming into us on a regular basis, that is what is turning us on, spinning us, increasing our frequency within us, because we're light inside of us. So we have light inside of us, consciousness inside of us, of many different dimensional frequencies. We also have the light body that's held in the etheric body. Okay, and that's a totally separate thing. I'm going to do a video on that. The etheric body holds the light body that dropped in, the light of who you are that dropped in. That's different than the light that's coming in and activating the light that's inside of us. It's a little bit different. The etheric body, that light body, doesn't ever shift frequency. It is what it is when it came in. The light inside of us that we're holding, the consciousness inside of us that consumes our entire form and moves out in our energetic field, is what is shifting. And so that is what is tapping into the fourth dimensional frequency and the fifth dimensional frequency, right? So you're tapping into these awarenesses, these knowingnesses, these frequencies, these feelings, these experiences. And, you know, like when you hear your higher self, right? You were all starting to, well, a lot of us are starting to hear guidance, hear voices, learning how to do that. And that is tapping into a higher frequency that's moving. However, you're still here in this form that is still, for most of us, residing within the third dimensional field. So it's very much like you are, it's kind of like you're going crazy, right? This just feels like craziness because there's all these frequencies you're feeling. There's all these different dimensions that the light inside of you can access now for many of us. And yet you're still third dimension in the form. So you're still being pushed back down into this form. And so what's being asked of us right now in this current energy is to recognize the gift of being conscious of this. And when you recognize that it's a gift to be conscious, you'll recognize that everything you're experiencing and feeling is perfect and divine. And it just means that you're awakening more and more. You're becoming more conscious. It's showing you where you're going. It's showing you how advanced, how much further you are than you were a year ago. What we tend to do is we beat ourselves up. And we say, oh my God, there's too much that I'm feeling. I'm not processing it the right way. I have all these horrible thoughts about myself. I have these beliefs about myself. I'm more depressed than I ever have. I'm more sad than I ever have. I feel like I'm going up and down, like I'm a bipolar person and I need meds. That's ascension. That's what we're doing here, right? That's what we're doing here. And every week, it's a different experience. Every day, it's a different experience. Every day is new. Every day is different. And the more conscious you become, the more you're going to feel crazy. Because in the past, we were completely veiled. We had the veils over our eyes, and we were just living a normal life. And for many of us, it was kind of peaceful. And sure, we didn't have everything we wanted, and it was like there was things that you were going through, but for the most part, it's kind of nice being kind of numbed out and not aware of what's going on. Once we start awakening and recognizing, oh my God, then it can become quite the roller coaster ride, the up and down. And yet there's beautiful moments tucked inside all of that up and down. There's beautiful moments of remembering who you are, the aspect, the being that you are. And that regardless of how challenging it is right now, in any of your very third dimensional human experiences, you are shifting. You are moving. You are. The key to this right now in this current time, this now moment that we're in, the key to it, you guys, is to remember, is to recognize that everything you're experiencing is okay. Everything that's coming up has to move out of you. And the less you can try to figure it out and do it, meaning, okay, well, this is coming up, this emotion is coming up, this thought is coming up, this belief is coming up. Now, what do I do with it? What am I supposed to do? How do I clear it out? You don't do anything. You just sit with it. It just is. It just is. The more you become conscious and the more you become the observer, it feels as if it's becoming more tumultuous. However, it gets a lot easier because you recognize there's nothing to do. There's nothing to do. You get extremely present in your now moment and you just recognize what's coming up. And when you recognize what's coming up, you just acknowledge it and feel it. You just acknowledge it and feel it. Listen to the crazy thoughts that go through your head, but you acknowledge it and feel it. The more conscious you become, the more you're going to see these things. The more conscious you become, the more you're going to feel these things. The more conscious you become, the faster it's going to move through you. The faster it will move through you. So a lot of us are getting stuck in the doing. We're getting stuck in the doing of it. What am I supposed to do? How do I do this? What do I need to do with this? And the key to this is that there is nothing to do. You don't do anything with it. You don't do anything with it. That's the crazy thing about energy. Energy naturally moves. Energy naturally flows. And as long as you're conscious of the energy, bringing your awareness to the energy moves. Our consciousness moves the energy. You don't have to do anything to move it. You don't have to do anything to clear it out of you. There's nothing to do. When you really start to understand energy, it just flows and moves. What happens to the human is a byproduct of becoming more conscious is the human wants to start to do more. Well, now I got to do things, right? The more we know, the more the ego says, oh, okay, well, you got to do this, you're not doing this right, well, you're not doing that right, well, you're definitely not doing it fast enough, right? The ego comes in and says, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. All right, then you got to do it this way and faster and this. There's all these ways in which you're supposed to be doing this. And what they want us to understand is there is absolutely nothing to do but whatever is in your now moment that you feel called to do in that now moment. Meaning, if you feel like going and sitting by a river, then by all means do it. If you feel like listening to a certain song, then do it. If you feel like going and exercising, then do it. But don't try to figure it out. Don't try to figure it out. Energy will move as long as you're aware of it. So what does this mean as long as you're aware of it? Consciousness, observing it. It means here comes an emotion. I am feeling extremely sad today. Okay. I'm going to feel that sadness, meaning I'm just going to be in my day. And when the sadness arises and I feel it, I'm just going to feel it. I'm not attaching to it. I'm not grabbing it. I'm conscious that I am feeling sadness. And I remember that this means that is a consciousness that's inside of me, an energy that's just moving through me. Thank God. Great. Hallelujah. Not fun. So the more conscious you become, the more crazy you're going to feel. Okay. The more you're going to feel like you've gone 3 steps down. And yet you're going to start to tap into higher consciousnesses. And yet when you start tapping into higher consciousnesses, you're going to want to stay in those higher consciousnesses. And yet you can't stay in those higher consciousnesses because your body is still in a 3rd dimensional matrix. So don't beat yourself up that you're going back and forth and that you can't stay in those higher frequencies. Let me tell you something. When your body is ready to anchor into those higher frequencies, guess what? You will be in those higher frequencies 24/7. And until then, stop pushing yourself to try to get to a higher frequency because that is struggle. That is creating, it's an attachment to something that isn't in your now moment. It's where all suffering is. Suffering is the byproduct of trying to be somewhere, go something, experience something, have something that's not in your now moment. That's suffering. That's struggle. What's in your now moment, if you are actually present with it, it's not that difficult. It just moves. The difficulty, struggle, and suffering comes from wanting to be, wanting to have, trying to get out of the now moment. That's where struggle is. That's where suffering comes from. Escaping the now moment. Because in the now moment, when you're actually in the now moment feeling things, it's actually not as bad as we think. Sometimes it can be bad, sure. And there are definitely emotions that are uncomfortable and painful, but it's not suffering in the same way as torturing yourself because you want to be somewhere that you're not. You know, and then we have this anxiety around it, and we have this inability to trust. We're doing it wrong. So the current energies right now, you guys, is that you're becoming more aware and you're becoming more conscious. And when you become more conscious, you think you're going crazy because you're seeing more, feeling more, hearing more. You can't be around people. You can't be around certain situations. You don't want to go out sometimes. You know, family members are driving you nuts. Things, you're having to pull back from people, pull back some situations, move your job, move out of the place you're living. All these things are starting to happen. You're hearing your higher self more, and then you're hearing your ego. You don't know the difference. You're going nuts. And then we try to figure it out. So the more conscious you become, the more you become the observer. And at the same time, the human aspect of us wants to start to do. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? I have to do something, right? And you're tapping into higher frequencies. And those are awesome. Who doesn't love being aligned? who doesn't love feeling the beings around them? Who doesn't love feeling like everything is okay and everything is great? Who doesn't love that? Who doesn't love moving into these frequencies that just make you feel like everything is awesome? You're not going to stay in that. Not right now, not until your physical form is anchored in that frequency. So you're going to tap into it. And depending upon where you are in your own personal unique frequency, you may hold it longer, right? So there are many, many humans on the earth plane that are holding higher frequencies. And yet their body may still be in the third dimension. But if they can hold those higher frequencies energetically, then they're able to feel that a little bit longer. But they are still, boom, in this third dimensional body. So they're still going to walk around and have frustrations and anxieties and worries or whatever it is that happens in this third dimensional matrix. Nothing wrong with that. We're all going, we're all moving. And the more conscious you become of this, the more you have in terms of the picture of what this is all about. This, you can see the bigger picture. You're starting to see the bigger picture. If you've been listening to my videos for a while, give yourself a pat on the back because you're becoming more conscious and you're becoming more aware of the picture. I guarantee you, if you look back at yourself 6 months from here, 6 months ago, 7 months ago, a year ago, how are you viewing yourself and your world now compared to back then? You're more conscious. You're more aware. You kind of want to pull your hair out every once in a while, right? It's like you're watching this movie and you're like, oh my God, I'm in this freaking movie. I can't get out of it. And some days are great. Other days are awful, right? Some days are fun. Some days I feel completely unaligned, detached, and dense. But I'm learning that this is how it goes. I'm learning that there is a constant fluctuation of the energy right now until my physical body is anchored into that fourth dimensional field. And you'll know when your physical form is anchored into the fourth dimensional field because you will no longer be feeling the third dimensional consciousness that you've been feeling your entire life, which means you won't be healing or clearing or processing experiences from your past. So if you are still clearing, like many of us, most of us, if you're still processing, clearing, healing, moving through emotions, thoughts, and beliefs that are from your past, which is basically just any experience you've had from yesterday beyond, then you're still clearing third dimensional consciousness out of your physical form. Nothing wrong with that. But you're not anchored, your physical form is not anchored in the fourth dimension yet. As soon as you are no longer clearing any density out of you, which means that there are no longer intense emotions, intense traumas, intense beliefs, intense thoughts, intense meaning paradigms held in a third dimension, beliefs held in a third dimension, then you will know that you've anchored. And you'll know that you're anchored because you're going to know you're anchored. I'm not anchored in the fourth dimension yet, so I can't explain it. I'm not there yet. Otherwise, I could be like, oh my God, you guys, this is what it's like to be anchored in the fourth dimension, right? But I'm not there yet. I'm still clearing out and processing my third dimensional life, right? But there are people that are anchored into the fourth dimension. They may not even know that they're anchored into the fourth dimension. So we can't even ask them, hey, what's it like to be anchored in the fourth dimension? Unity consciousness begins. There's no duality in the sense that there's no judgments, right? So you really start to recognize that there's no right or wrong. You're starting to just look at life as a neutral canvas. That's a huge piece of anchoring in the fourth dimensional frequency. And unity consciousness just means that every single human being has a unique path, purpose, and divine blueprint and light within their form. And yet every single human is one source light, one source consciousness that's split, right? So you start to recognize that, which requires a huge amount of compassion and empathy. So imagine looking out into the world and seeing all of these people doing all of these horrible things and looking at it just as it is. It just is. That person is not doing anything right or wrong. That requires an extremely high frequency to be holding. And there are many ascended masters on the earth plane that have walked this earth plane, including Jesus, that were able to do that. They were able to watch any horrific experience, any traumatic experience, anything, and they were able to hold a neutral space. That is a light being in physical form having their human experience. They are recognizing it from a different perspective, a higher perspective, which just means a higher frequency. So they were anchored into a fourth or a fifth, right? So you start to anchor that in, or you are anchored in the fourth, and that's what you're going to start to be. And then when you anchor in your physical form in the fifth dimension, then you are literally experiencing a consciousness field that is in a now. So everything just is now. And your ability to intend, manifest, and create is in that now moment. You are completely and utterly at all times aligned with the other aspects of you, including the I am presence and your higher self. There's a constant connection, which means there is no question of who you are, the aspects of you that are connected to you and how they work and what they're here to do for you. You're completely aware and have the remembrance of dropping into the physical form. You are aware and actively connected and communicating with, as if they were in front of you, your family of light, any other galactic beings, angelic beings. They are no longer sort of, am I connected? Am I not connected? Am I hearing? Am I not hearing? It just becomes the now. It just is. It's a totally different, we can't really understand until we're there what it's like to be able to anchor in a fifth dimensional consciousness, because many of us have been in that consciousness prior to the earth falling millions of years ago, but we don't remember, many of us. And even if we remember, we don't quite remember what it was like. And so it's very challenging for any human, I don't care who they are right now, unless you are vibrating at that fifth dimensional consciousness and anchored it into your body, which means that your body wouldn't look like a normal human body. It just wouldn't, right? In fact, there are humans on the earth plane right now that if you come into contact with them and they are anchored into the fifth dimension, you would literally be able to see vibrational light kind of vibrating out of them. And you would be able to almost, you would look at them and they would look as if they were moving back and forth between a physical form and a light form. So it would be almost like you were on an acid trip looking at this human, because it would be like, wait a second, because you're in a third dimensional matrix. They're in a fifth dimensional matrix, but they're still here in front of you, right? So it'd be very trippy, kind of like, what the freak? Like, here's a human anchored into that fifth dimensional consciousness, but still in this matrix with me. And you'll notice their bodies will move, their bodies will vibrate, right? But that's very rare right now. Most of us don't come in contact, and most spiritual teachers are not vibrating there yet. Right? So to try to understand what it's like to be anchored into a fifth dimension is really challenging. And what they're saying right now to me is to remind you and me and all of us, there's nowhere to go. That trying to get somewhere or anchor something in is the struggle. That is where suffering comes from. So stop, they're saying. Stop trying to get somewhere. And that even means stop trying to kind of find it inside of yourself, right? There's a lot of us that we hear these things of, it's all inside of us. Go inside and find it inside. Find the new earth inside. Everything's inside of you. Yes, and everything is outside of you. And it's the same thing. Trying to search for anything is suffering, is struggle. because you're trying to get out of whatever is in the now moment. And this is anchoring in the fourth dimension. If you want to start anchoring into the next dimension consciously through awareness, then you start to get really present in your now moment, and you stop trying to be, go, do, have anything other than what is in the now, what is present in front of you, recognizing and remembering, regardless of how hard it is, that whatever is in front of you right now is designed to move you to the next highest aspect and version of you. There's no mistakes. Nothing you are going through, nothing you are experiencing is for nothing. It's just because. If you're listening to this video, these beings are reminding you of what you already know, which is that what you are going through right now, whether it's an amazing experience, complete alignment and awesomeness, trying to connect more and more to your star families. Stop trying, because they're already there, so you just be, and here they come, right? Or you're experiencing really, really traumatic emotions, really traumatic experiences from the past, and you're clearing them out. Regardless of where you find yourself on that spectrum, it's all designed to be coming up in your now moment, for you to do nothing with it but be observant of it, conscious of it, look at it, feel it, hear it, see it with your hands up, because it's moving you up to that next highest version of you. What does that mean, the next highest version of you? The next click on your frequency, so that you can get closer and closer and closer to your physical form, anchoring in. Your job as an egoic structure in the third dimensional matrix is to get conscious of the energies coming up, the densities coming up, so that your consciousness, the being that you are, can clear it out through awareness. So the light coming in pops up this density. The being that you are, the third dimensional personality, ego structure, and awareness aspect of you, looks at that energy, sees what's coming up, and then it moves. If you deny it or pretend it's not there, the energy moves. Energy moves through consciousness. And when you are conscious of the energy, then it moves through the physical form. That's why when you have experiences in the past that are really traumatic, and they come in and they're funneled through the emotional body and the mental body, if they're too intense and too painful, then we basically kind of turn our backs and not consciously feel it, see it, hear it, experience it in order for it to move through. So as it's trying to move through, it gets stuck because we turn our consciousness away from it, and it stops. So even though energy is always moving, energy is designed to move, right? If we have an energy that's coming in and it's beginning to kind of move through the physical form and the density of it, as an energetic being of light, if we don't acknowledge it, it basically sticks. It kind of like, it's almost like the light turns off. So the light comes in, and if we are not bringing our light to it, it turns off. It just stops. It kind of just like almost like it dies, but not really, right? It just stops, stuck. As soon as you bring your consciousness back to it, the light goes, you're shining a light on it. That's why everyone always says things about you shine the light. When you're conscious of something, you're shining the light on it. You're shining the light on the shadow. You're shining the light on the dark. That just means you're being conscious. You're turning your awareness to it. Turning your awareness to it turns the light on, looks at it. Oh shit, I forgot about that piece. Ooh, I forgot about that. Ooh, I didn't like that, right? And then this consciousness that never got to move through because it was basically turned off, the light of it got dark, turns on. It's like, oh, the light's on me. I can go. It's go time. Green light, red light, green light, red light, green light. When you're anchored in a fifth dimensional consciousness or a fifth dimensional field, the energy is vibrated at such a high level that you are consciously always aware of what's coming through. Plus, it is vibrating so much quicker and faster that it's always moving through you. It's always processing through you. Where in a third dimensional consciousness, the energy is so dense that it's very slow. And it needs your conscious awareness of it to move it through. So anyway, one more analogy really quickly and then I'm going to go about the current energies is imagine that you're looking at a pond, okay? And the pond is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful crystal blue color. And you can see all the way to the bottom and there's all these fish and this coral and you can see the very bottom of the pond where the sand is, or not sand, but the bottom of it is, right? And yet there's a film over it. So like a mucky film, right? And as you become conscious, which is what's happening to so many of us, right? We're becoming conscious. We are looking down. We know as we're looking down at the pond that there is a beautiful world of fish in there. And it's the most beautiful blue you could possibly see, right? And yet above it, on top of it is the film. And so you're now looking at the film and you're saying, oh my God, there's this mucky film covering the beauty of this. And so you're having to sort of clean or push away this mucky film. And depending upon how much you're still clearing out of you, the film is the third dimensional consciousness. The film is the emotions, thoughts, beliefs, paradigms, programming that we've consumed and held inside our physical body. So the film that we're looking at on the pond is the dense consciousness inside our physical form that wants to move through. The very beautiful blue pond that's underneath that film and all the fish and the life that's there and the coral and all that. I don't even know if coral's in a pond, but whatever. In this story it is. That's us. That's the light of who we are. That's who we are. That's our wholeness. That's who you are. And so there's this film over us that we're constantly becoming. The more you're aware of that film, the more you're recognizing there's something beautiful underneath there. And all of this that's coming up has been telling me this is who I am, and yet it's not who I am. This is not who I am. My thoughts, beliefs, emotions, they're not who I am. They're the experience, the playground I've been living in. And I have to get conscious of it so that I can see the film. Because if you can't see the film, you can't see the blue water underneath, right? You can't see the blue water without seeing the film. So you have to see the film and you have to acknowledge the film. And as you start to get conscious of acknowledging this film, you think this is insane, this is crazy, this is so dirty, it gets frustrating, it's a lot of work. When am I going to get through that film so I can remember who I am? That's what's happening to us right now. You are looking at that film, you're annoyed, you're frustrated, you don't want to be doing it sometimes. You get little peaks of that blue light, the aspect of you that is whole, the aspect of you that is the light being that dropped in. And yet you still are recognizing that there is this film that is continuing, and there's nothing you can do about the film other than naturally allow it to be cleared out, right? There's no special techniques you can do to bypass the film over the pond. That's what's happening. So every now moment is perfect. Every now moment is exactly what it's supposed to be. Every experience, every emotion, every interaction, everything, every physical ailment, everything. And get more conscious of that. Surrender to that more. Acknowledge that more. Be okay with that more. And the more you're going to be okay with that and sit with it, the faster it moves through, the more conscious you become, the quicker you shift, and the quicker you'll anchor into that fourth dimensional field with your physical form, not the consciousness, the light being that you are. I hope this was useful. If this resonated with you, please like the video, share it. If there's anybody out there right now that just wants to have a more clear understanding of what's going on, please pass it on to them. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. I'm doing my first live YouTube Q&A this Tuesday, the 23rd at 4 p.m. If you subscribe to the channel and push the little bell button next to the subscription, you subscribe and there's a little bell. If you click the bell, it'll ask you if you want to be notified when they go live, and you want to do that, and then you'll know. But it's the 23rd, 4 p.m. So I would love to see you there live. I'm going to take all your questions about any of the videos that you have questions on, or just life in general. Anything is a go. Thank you all for being here. I love you all so much. It's an honor to be here with you, serving you, sharing these messages, reminding you of what you already know. Everything I'm telling you is nothing new. Nothing new. Everything I'm telling you, you know. You just forgot. I'm just the messenger reminding you. Okay? Love you so much, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Bye-bye.